Hi, this is Vinny from Pukenui in sunny Malaysia at the moment. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, can hear you, Vinny.
Fantastic. I just want to welcome everyone to Lindy's session, live webinar on edgy beans, release the conditionals. Lindy has been working with Moodle for a number of years, and what she doesn't know isn't worth knowing. So thank you very much, Lindy, for presenting today, and I'm really looking forward to this.
Well, thank you, Vinny. That's very kind. Okay, so for those of you who may have seen it before, I apologise, I'm reusing some slides here. Um, I'm very, very passionate about conditional release of activities within Moodle. So this is something that I do like presenting on wherever I get the opportunity. And today we're looking at my top 10 favourites. So without further ado, before you can get to any of the goodies that I'm going to be talking about later on, you'll need some help from your Moodle administrator. So if you can't see completion tracking or conditional access within any of your courses or your activities right now, then you'll need to talk to your site administrator about turning on completion tracking and conditional access. And they're two checkboxes under advanced features in your administrator's menu. They're not hard to find. Once you've done that, in your course, you'll need to enable completion tracking. So from your course settings page, you'll need to set enable completion tracking from no to yes. It's no by default so that we don't scare off new teachers or new staff with settings that they've never seen before. Optionally, you can talk to your site administrator about creating some other profile fields for the user profile page, which gives you some extra functionality we'll come to in just a moment. It's not hard to set them up, but you only do it if you need to, because otherwise that's an extra administrative load for your site administrators, and they don't like that unnecessarily. So the first and easiest one to do, and oh my goodness, I've just noticed Big Blue Button has kind of cut my text off with my image, so sorry about that, folks. My first and favourite one is checklist labels, because labels are really easy to create on the front page of your course, and you can have your students simply tick off the things that they've done throughout the course. This has worked particularly effectively for me when I'm running blended training, and the bonus for you is that you can get a completion report at the end of this process that shows you which people have said, yes, I'm confident doing that thing, which is really cool when you're trying to review your lesson later on. Just be very careful with it, because students can select and deselect. So for me, that was actually a bonus. I could say to people at the end of the day, well, those of you who ticked, you were confident with it when we were doing it. Now's the chance to go through and just double check. If you're still confident, leave it ticked. If you're not confident, deselect it so I can get some feedback on how I'm going with what I'm training. The other thing I love with conditionals is audience-specific content. So yes, you can use conditional access for compliance training, but audience-specific content means that you can tailor the learning path to suit your users. In this particular case, the shout out to the Bureau of Meteorology, who was behind the little tweak that made this possible. It's based on user profile fields by restriction. So in your activity or in your topic section, you can restrict that particular thing so that a user must have either X user profile field filled out or filled out in a specific way. So for example, the Bureau of Meteorology, there are different areas in the country that have different things they need to focus on. So what's relevant for sunny Queensland might not be quite so relevant for snowy Tasmania. They adjusted the activities that were available based on where people were and what their interests were, which they could draw in from user profile fields. Very cool. Encourage you to have a look at it. I mentioned compliance previously, so a policy agreement is a common enough thing to need at site-wide level, and of course Moodle's got suitability for that at a site-wide level, but if you need something that's very specific to your own course, so for example, I agree that I will read Mrs. James' blog once a week, then you may need a course policy agreement, and if that's the case, you can set up that agreement to put it into something like a quiz or a choice activity and restrict the rest of the course so that if you're using a quiz, they must have got the required pass mark in the quiz. If you're using a choice, they must have ticked yes. Now, for those of you who are getting excited about just using a very simple choice, I love it, but the downside is you have to make sure they can't select no, which I think is a bit of a fudge. Moving along. I mentioned before the ability to tailor the content based on your students, and one of the things we like doing in face-to-face courses is giving our students a choice of assessment task. So they can do assignment A or assignment B, and our very diligent students get all excited and they do assignment A and assignment B, which causes great headaches when we come to marking time. So for now, what you can do is say, if you've done assignment A, assignment B isn't available anymore, and vice versa, which makes it a lot easier come marking time, and it's not as confusing for students. I have known some students to come back with, oh, but what happened to assignment B? I've done assignment A and now I want to go and do the second one. It's probably better that they come and ask you than that they actually do it and you have to work out which one to grade. I also like giving them a choice of stream that they can work within. So you'll find in our wonderful EduBeans site there's a course called Release the Conditionals. It's open for access. You can go and have a look at it. You can enroll in it as a student if you'd like to get a feel for some of these conditionals. This particular one is letting them choose by selecting a label which stream they want to go and have a look through. So I've got 2 streams in the course, Pirate Mode and Ninja Mode. And at any time they can come in and select one of those modes and see the activities related to them. It just makes life a little bit more fun, and it can still be the same basic assessment structure. It's just giving them a chance to look at it from a different perspective. It might be your streams are more visually focused or more auditory learning focused, whatever works best for your class situation. Oh, Drago, I'm very, very sorry. May need to go out and come back in is what I mean to type. Of course he can't hear me. Hopefully Vinny will be able to help Drago out there. Okay, reflective sequences allow for staging activities. I'm one of those students who tends to do all my reflection at 10 to the deadline, which is not a particularly good reflective practice. So with sequences, you can encourage your students to do the first step and then the second step and then the third step. Just beware of being a control freak over it. If you become a control freak, students get a little bit rebellious and cranky and they don't want to do any of it because it's too chunked down and too restricted for them. Finding that happy balance is up to you to discuss with your students and take on board their feedback. In this particular example, we've got a choice activity that leads into a forum activity where they can break down those ideas a little bit further, that takes them out to a wiki activity where they can actually publish their ideas in a more coherent sense. And while we're on the subject of tailoring for students, supportive sequences are fantastic. So if you've got a student who failed the quiz abysmally, you want to give them a little bit more support, a little more resources to go through and have a look at. If you've got a student who blitzed the quiz and is now looking a little bit bored, you want to give them something that extends them a little bit more. So based on the quiz grade, you can choose to offer our support requiring student a little bit more help and our excelling student a little bit more to challenge them. Personally, when I'm doing that, I really love hiding the activities entirely so that I don't inundate the student who's struggling and I don't bore the student who's really jumping through it because they don't want to know that there's extra remedial stuff in there. Gamification is getting a lot of excitement and discussion around Moodle circles, and conditional access is part of what makes it happen. In this particular example, you can store little icons throughout your site. For example, the Easter egg icon I have here, and particularly if they're very small, so they're hard to see, you can make them open up additional things for your students. Now, I'm not saying we should hide the essential content of the course from students, that would be silly, but storing something like a poster image or a silly video or something that just adds to the joy of being curious and going exploring through the course, that's a really good way of doing your Easter egg effect. In this case, we had just a simple page resource hidden behind that little icon. So the icon itself, you link over the top of it with the page resource, you put the page resource in orphaned activity so it never shows up to the student any other way. Very cool. Vinny, were you trying to get my attention? Oh, I'm glad it worked the second time, Jeanette. Okay. Okay, pacing through these at rocket speed, so I'm sorry if I'm going too fast for people. Oh, awesome. Switching content is the ability to take a label and grey it out or make it unavailable if students have done a particular activity, or make it available if they haven't done a particular activity. Please, please, please be especially careful with this one. Students do get a bit disconcerted when something they were expecting to see on the front page has suddenly disappeared. But I do think putting in a greyed out image that suggests there's something more coming, if they do a little bit more, they can access the locked away resources. That can be fun. My last one here, release the Kraken. You'll have to forgive some of the pirate references in here. It comes with Moodling, really. Releasing a badge or a conditional certificate when your students have gone through and done a particular sequence adds to that excitement of exploring your course. So conditional certification can also be very useful for compliance training. If they've gone through and met the requirements of every activity, then release the certificate. But badgification can be for simple task completion, or can be for a much broader range of skills and background knowledge that they've acquired through doing your course. There is a wonderful international discussion happening around badges and how they may augment or even replace certification, especially in an online sense. So I'd encourage you to join in with Mozilla's Open Badges project and join in the conversation, hear what people are saying about it, see how it might work in your organisation. Obviously, as of 2.5, you've got badges available in Moodle, so there's a lot you can have fun with and play with there. The last one on my list, I know it was the top 10, but I just have to mention this one. It's dead ends. It's not a top 10 at all. It's a horrible thing to create with conditionals, and it can happen when you forget to plan. Please map it out, even if it's just a scratch mud map on the whiteboard or on some note paper. At least know what you want to have happen, so that when you're trying to fix it up later, you can see where it might have gone wrong. Quite happy to open up for those who want to discuss any other ideas you've got for using conditionals, but these are my top 10. For those who want to have a play with them, the course is in the EduBeans site. It's within the same area as this webinar's area. You can download a copy of the course to your own version of Moodle if you like, so that you can have a bit of a play with it and see how things were built, or you can enrol as a student and see it from a student perspective and work out how that works for you. So I'm going to pause for breath. Sorry, that was much faster than I'd expected. Are there any questions?
Hey Lindy, this is Vinny from Pukenui in Malaysia. I just thought I'd jump in, and it doesn't look like there's any more questions.
I think I've shell-shocked them.
I just wanted to say thank you again for presenting.
My pleasure, thank you.
It's great watching other people present. Even though I've been using the software for quite a while, I still pick up little bits and bobs, and it reminds me of some of the really useful features that there are within the software. Especially, I always forget how useful it can be having conditional activities based on fields in the user profile. That's the one that I always forget. Yeah, really powerful.
Thank you. It's a tricky one for teachers to use on their own, because you need to have your site administrator helping you out with creating those fields in the first place. But my goodness, I think it's much, much better than the old group and groupings way of trying to build audience-specific content.
Okay, so thank you very much. These all of the webinars from edubeans.org will be available on our Pukenui YouTube channel. So if you just go to youtube.com and do a search for Pukenui, Pukunui, you'll be able to see all of the recent webinars and the recordings from iMoot this year and last, which is another online conference and conference that we run every year. So, thank you once again, Lindy, and thank you everybody else for joining us this morning.
Thank you, folks. Short and sweet, and we'll see you next time. Before everyone disappears, this is the last webinar for 2013, but we'll see you with more awesome content in the new year.